You probably saw it yesterday that Bitcoin skyrocketed up through resistance to over 35,000. Now, most likely on news of BlackRock's iTrust submitting for a ticker symbol and their filing being leaked, which included their plan to seed their ETF in October. And we don't have a lot of October left. Now, was all that buying that came in that drove the price higher from BlackRock seeding their ETF, or was it people buying on the news of that? We don't know. It could be BlackRock buying. It could also be investors getting bullish as they see Bitcoin spot ETF approval getting closer. Today, let's take a look at the markets affecting money around the world. Then let's take a deeper look at Bitcoin in this recent run we had and see what the charts are suggesting. Then we'll also dive into viewer picks of altcoins to look at, as well as we should have some time to take your live comments on what altcoins or what things you want us to look at, as well as field your questions. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you're looking for crypto news that doesn't have context, or you're looking for panic selling, or you're looking for FOMOing in at the top, there's a lot of channels that cover that type of stuff, but not here. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realized the potential for life-changing gains over really a 4 to 8 year period, it doesn't happen just tomorrow. And you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable crypto investor, you're in exactly the right place and the right family. The Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto like you 6 years ago. And back then I was looking for a crypto channel and a network or group that understood crypto as an investment, but discussed the important things like investment cycles and the pros and cons of the different projects. What are the risks? What are the real risks that this project could fail based on like somebody who really knows business and can look at it and see how good is this team? What is their background? Do they have the connections to make this happen? And then guesses at the upside if it came together well. Well, I didn't find that, so we created it. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of Rainmakers. And you see them here in the chat with Abe and Garrett and Chris and many, many more who haven't done a shout out yet. You can also find them in our free Telegram group, and the link to that is below. And you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. This is where the best discussion, best info is. There are other benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself, and I'm just sharing with you how I think about things. Paul invests in many markets, and none of this to be taken as financial advice. If you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show because today is Wednesday, and well, Tuesday actually.
We moved it, didn't we? We moved Wednesday to Tuesday.
And Paul is joining us because tomorrow he's going to be traveling. So let's get rolling. Paul, how you been?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's last week was the anniversary, 36 years since the stock market crash. We said that going into Friday would be a difficult time in the markets. But once we got past that, the trends should continue upwards. And yeah, it's still October, still nervousness around this time of year in the main equity markets and the main what we call risk on markets. But there's no real reason to think that things are going to turn down in a major way. And we should be pushing towards new highs as we enter into 2024. And this period here is a consolidation. The market's rejected those lows that tried to test last week. We've had a good bounce from those lows. So we're going to go through the charts, have a look there. The dollar giving an indication that it's hit a top. And that's a good sign as well. And of course, we've been bullish on the majors, looking for a base. I think we also said last week that when things happen, they happen fast. And look how quickly things have moved in Bitcoin. You have to remember that there are waves of this, and the first wave will be into Bitcoin. Then they'll move into the altcoins, although some have already moved. But it doesn't mean every single altcoin is going to move, because there are some that the market is just going to be a bit more skeptical of and maybe a bit more choosy of until we get this major bull market, which should be coming in for next year. But there's always a good reason from a fundamental point of view that ends up backing up what the technicals were saying anyway. And you tend to find when you get the story, I get a little nervous that it becomes a bit too obvious that the market should go up. So if there's a clear positive kind of story that says why Bitcoin should have gone up, then people will just sort of jump in and buy. And anyone who makes decisions based upon short-term fear of missing out usually is buying at the wrong time. I say usually, sometimes not, but it's not a good idea to buy something unless you've got some form of plan, whether it's technical or fundamental. So as far as I can see, it's broken some great levels, and we're going to look at those. And we've been looking for some form of sharp move up before the halving anyway. We can see that the halving is getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
Closer we get to it, the more influence that's going to be. The broader equity markets have looked great. They've looked really good. And so as far as the market goes, and have they got money to put into these assets, the answer is yes. And we were discussing offline just a moment ago about how, and I think I've said it on the show a few times, why is everybody so negative on Bitcoin? Why is sentiment so negative given it's been performing so very, very well? It's been quite fascinating that people seem to not realize how well it's actually done as an asset. And I know you've got to put that into the context of the long term, but in order for a trend to start, it's got to start somewhere, and it's got to be maintained. So I think we said it was possibly the best performing asset this year, and it may well be, especially after the move we've just seen in the last few days, as we speak. But you wouldn't think it to ask people. They're still pretty down on it, which is to be expected. In fact, it's almost what you want to keep the trend going. So as far as sentiment goes, it doesn't look like people have got overexcited about it, and there's excessive speculation, which would be a warning sign. So steady she goes, it seems.
What's funny is I've seen, like, even myself, right, when I didn't really get interested in Bitcoin until it broke $6,000. That was in 2017. And I'd heard about it way back in like 2012. And the way somebody described it to me, it didn't make sense. They're like, oh, you put your computer to work and it hashes a bunch of strings together and creates a Bitcoin. And then I thought, well, shoot, over time, there's just going to be a whole bunch of people doing this. And I didn't realize there was the way it worked at all. That's not how it works at all. And so I thought, you'll be able to print infinity number of these. And if there's no scarcity, then there's no true value. And so I had it all wrong in my mind. And it wasn't until it broke above 6,000, I was like, I better look deeper into this, because if what they had told me was true, it wouldn't be breaking 6,000. But unfortunately, I missed out because, Bitcoin was $100 back then, and would have been nice for me to get started sooner. And how much is that maybe the case with a lot of people, even very smart people, that in their mind, they don't fully understand what's going on. They bought into the wrong idea of it. And so they continue to get like perplexed by its performance because they have an incorrect picture of what it really is. And maybe that's what's going on there. Real quick question. Justin asks, what's the significance of the coins in the title and how'd you hear of them? So viewers that suggest in the comments of this video, we prioritize those to look at in the next week's video. So these four, XRP, WAN, HUSL, and AKASH, came from viewers who watched the last video and suggested him for this video. And so we'll have plenty of time to take viewer picks live too, which is great about doing these live, but that is historically how we've drawn that. And before we went live, that was how you put your suggestions in completely. Now it's a combination of, put them in here as well as suggest them in the comment section for the next video. Paul, it's my birthday in 6 months. Can you wish me a happy birthday?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Happy birthday in 6 months' time.
Cool. Well, let's take a look at some of the charts that you're looking at. I'm curious as to what's happening in the equities markets and other markets, and how what happened to them yesterday as Bitcoin did so well.
So the fears about a crash. I don't know whether you guys were looking at the headlines and stuff, but coming into the markets felt very negative last week, and we saw quite a sharp retracement. But if you take a step back and you look at the big picture, nothing has really changed other than the markets consolidating. Based around October last year. So October this year, I was expecting some form of rebound. So it had a rally, sharp retracement as all this fear came in for October, the anniversary of the crash. And we've seen the first step of the rebound. Now, it's not out of the woods. The market could turn down. It's possible. But let's see how far up this goes. And the higher this goes, I think the market will be short. So the more it goes higher, the more likely those positions are going to be squeezed. And as we approach the end of the year and move into next, we should be eyeing these highs up here potentially. And that's great news for the crypto market, because it means that there'll be a lot of money swirling around, looking for a home, looking for a speculative trade. So that's the Dow, which is the 30 stocks. NASDAQ, again, it had a break of its prior low, which I said if it broke that, then I would, be a little concerned of it. But the way it did it, it just went down and straight up again on a day of fear. So to me, that was like, okay, that it's short-term traders pushing stops, trying to, get those stops just below that support, and the rebound has been decent. So that tells me that the market does want to buy and is not as negative as we're being told. Some people are looking at macro situations, or the macro sort of outlook, I should say. I've been listening to Jerome Powell, and he was talking on Friday last week. He was saying that they're looking for signs that interest rates are going to go down. And Jerome Powell is basically saying at the moment, I don't care about any other metric other than keeping rates really high to stop speculation. And he just wants to keep, so unless non-farm payrolls prints negatively, which I'm thinking it's going to now, because of the pressures on the US, consumer is so massive. Unless it prints negative, he's not going to change interest rates from where they are, even though the market has been squealing about how high rates are and they feel too high, and the dollar's been too strong and oil's been too strong. So there's been multiple pressures that I've said many times on the economy. But he's trying to do is give an impression that he doesn't really care about anything else other than, as long as non-farm payrolls looks good, he's going to hold rates where they are. And the reason for that is because prior to him, previous Fed chairmen and chairwomen have given the impression that every time the market goes down, they're going to come in and save the market. So that's called the Fed put. And what that means is that whenever the market runs into trouble, they'll just start tweaking the dials and making it so there's enough money floating around so it can flow into all these speculative areas. Now, the problem with that is it can push too much money into those speculative areas and cause a bigger crash at the end of it. So he's potentially trying to stop that. And it's interesting what he's saying, but I don't think the market really believes that he's going to he may try and keep rates higher for longer, but it wouldn't take much for him to change that view. And if things start to slow down, he's going to have to lower them. And I still think that they peaked. Whether they come down quickly or not, I'm not sure. But I don't think the market thinks rates are really going to go up again. So whatever he says, he's going to react to the economy anyway. But that was quite interesting. So when that came out, his comments were just basically saying rates are going to stay higher. Stop thinking about speculation. I'm not moving them down and I'm not going to save you. So he's trying to play hardball with the market.
Mm-hmm.
But this rally's telling me that maybe the market doesn't really believe it. And to be honest, I wouldn't normally spend that much time looking at what he says, but it was quite interesting that came in on Friday when everyone was negative. You got geopolitical risk. You look on Twitter and people think it's World War III and all that sort of stuff. So given all of that, if you take a step back and look at how the markets are trading, they're doing very well. They're doing extremely well. So that's why I'm bullish. I'm not bullish for no reason. It's the picture that the market is painting for me here. So I think more upside. NASDAQ, as we say, will trade back up to these highs. This is just a correction. Very nice correction, actually. So we've got I won't go into Elliott wave counts, but this could be quite a nice Elliott wave count that's going on. And we should get one more sharp move to the upside before a bigger consolidation. As far as the dollar goes, well, let's have a quick look at gold. Gold had a massive rally. Now, you might say that was on fears of war, but it was also, I think, the market wanting to get out of US dollars. And looking at the dollar index, we look at this trend line. Remember saying that there was a head and shoulders top potentially. That was actually working very well until today, and we got this bar, this really sharp bar back up. But overall, that still looks like it's topping. So, at the very least, it's consolidating, which is the first time it's done that. If we put it on a weekly chart, we can see that the market had gone up. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, nearly 13 days. And then we got this technical pattern, which is in candlestick charts, it's called a hammer, which means that the market's made a top and then come off. I would call it a spike. Then it's gone sideways, which is fairly typical after a pattern like that. And then it should start to trend down. So there might be a bit of a fight before it does that, because Jerome Powell has said that rates aren't going to go down, and the market is saying, if rates aren't going to go down, then I'm going to buy dollars. So they're going to be buying dollars on the weakness. But I think that the best of this trend is over. And as this goes down, it's potentially going to continue to help the crypto assets and further push this rally higher. So watch this space here. That's really interesting for me. This move up today, or this to the, where we are right now, is quite a decent bounce. I would have liked it to have stayed a bit lower and maybe traded down towards this 104 area before it had this sort of rebound. So it looks more like a consolidation than a top, but there's still definitely a end to this momentum. This upward momentum is stalling. So we'll have to see what the next phase is. But if that starts to go down, which I think it will, that's going to be great for everything.
Yeah, agreed. And it's got to turn around at some point. And sometimes things continue in a direction that, like, we're waiting for them to reverse. Sometimes it takes longer than you want it to. So, and already it has taken longer for the dollar to start going down, because what happens for those that are newer is as the dollar starts coming down, then more money flows into assets such as stocks or crypto or other things. And as the dollar value goes up, some of the money gets pulled from some of those other areas over into the dollar, where they can buy bonds with it and just earn a guaranteed rate. Web Zombies brings up, this was interesting news that happened. The iBitcoin, which is iTrust or BlackRock's spot ETF. So the ticker appeared yesterday and they removed it today. My guess is they put it there, didn't realize people would find it. And then they realized people would find it. They removed it because they're not quite ready to go with that. They're just preparing and getting everything in order. Which is just what you do, right? And I was thinking more about, like, why the SEC is finally coming around to approving this, and they're going to have to, whether Gary Gensler wants it to or not, because Gary Gensler has really been steering that ship. And a week ago, I listened to a video with Anthony Scaramucci, who spends a lot of time in Washington, and his insights were helpful. He's very pro crypto and pro Bitcoin. And he was saying that a deal was made because Biden was expected to be more crypto friendly than what we've seen. And so I asked myself, why has it been so different? Well, Elizabeth Warren was running for the primary against Joe Biden, and she dropped out and threw her support to him so that he could beat Bernie Sanders. And what Anthony Scaramucci said is some deals were cut in order for her to do that, and that she wanted control over the financial and banking sector, which included crypto, which means then that Gary Gensler was who she suggested get appointed. So Gary Gensler essentially answered to her. And then that's making a lot more sense why his actions have been so anti-crypto. If what he says is correct, I suspect it probably is, but I can't say I know that it is. And then it adds up. But it's been causing Democrats a lot of negative press because they're seen as the anti-crypto party. And so there's a lot of pressure probably on the White House, the Biden White House, to put pressure on Gensler to change his tune, including from BlackRock, who donates very heavily to Democrat politicians. And so the right things have been going this way. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's corruption and stuff. And what it is influence, and influence is normal. When you give huge amounts to politicians, well, then you usually have influence with them, right? And so, yeah, they're getting ready. Probably a spot ETF will be approved. The arguments against approving it don't have much merit. And so the path is being paved. And once spot ETFs are out there, it'll be a lot easier for corporations, institutions, sovereign wealth funds to be able to have exposure to Bitcoin. And a lot of them are talking about creating a 1 to 2% exposure in Bitcoin, which will massively pump the Bitcoin market, massively. And then if they like how that's going, I wouldn't be surprised if they increase their exposure. So a fun time. I was curious, are you seeing anything happening that leaves any clues in metals, whether they're precious metals or the metal with a PhD or any of those? Any of those giving any clues as to what might happen in the economy or where the economy is at?
Well, I would say that gold at this moment is very interesting, simply because that is the all-time high and it's getting so close to it. So the closer it gets to it, the greater the chance of a breakout. I mean, if we switch this to, say, sterling, it's like a similar situation. I mean, it does that sometimes. Why is it when I click on sterling, it puts it on something else? Look, there we go. Why is it doing that? I don't know. But if on sterling, it's much higher. It's through there. So I didn't really want to have to go all the way through and find it this way, but it's already gone through the equivalent of the high. It's come back for a consolidation, but it's going back. It's very, very close to its all-time high. Wow. So, and if you look at it compared to, I mean, it's like it acts like a currency. So if you compare it to the Japanese yen, it's in a straight line up. So gold and silver in US dollar terms have been consolidating because of all the reasons that we mentioned before about rates staying up and market risk, etc. But they're holding in very well, and they're doing more than that, actually. So there's a great chance of those breaking higher. With regard to base metals, if we look at aluminium and zinc, basing patterns, decent basing patterns, but not quite turning around in a sharp trend as yet, but they're digging their heels in at the right place. Aluminium's fairly similar. Got this upward trend. It's been trending against it. That looks pretty good. But it's not roaring. It's not roaring away, but it's doing the right thing. Copper was a little bit weaker than I thought. It actually came into this triangular constriction, and I thought the breakout would be to the upside with everything else, but actually it's just drifted to one side, and there's no real acceleration. I think some of that is because the Asian markets have been a bit weaker than than I expected at this point in the cycle, and they haven't quite turned around yet. They was at some really good support points. I still think there's plenty of opportunity for those to kick back in, for those trends to turn around, and then all of a sudden you'll see a very similar thing happening to base metals as what happened to gold. I mean, gold was going down, looked really negative, and people were calling it much lower, and then suddenly we got this really sharp move. So a bit like the rotation from Bitcoin into altcoins, you'll see a very similar thing. People say, well, what hasn't moved yet, and then start buying it. But what would really help all the metals would be a weaker non-farm payrolls at the next at the next print, which we're coming up to. Will it be next week? Might be next week, probably maybe the week after. So be the week after.
Perfect. Well, let's jump over to, let's look at Bitcoin and ETH and what's going on in the crypto space.
Yeah. So we got the breakout 28,547. It was knocking on the door, then sharp consolidation, and then a little consolidation, small triangular constriction. And then there were some people talking about this being a head and shoulders top, which it isn't. It's the structure of it's not right for a head and shoulders top. So it moving up there, I think, saw a lot of people step in and try and sell, which is why it's also had this big squeeze through it. So now it's above this 31,888, 32, whatever you want to call it. This area here should now act as support. So it shouldn't come back down. Well, if it does come back down to it, it shouldn't get below it. And I guess we're looking at the next major targets, which is nice because this is happening kind of ahead and faster than perhaps we thought it would. So where we've got this one 41,729. I think that's a reasonable target after consolidation. We've got some resistance at 34.35 from this previous 50% retracement point. But yeah, I mean, the trend is looking good. It's been out. It was outperforming. We were discussing that last week, how it seemed to be leading ETH, and ETH has been in a range, but this looks like it's taking the lead to the upside. But the important point there is it was taking the lead to an upside rather than the downside. So if it was inverted, whereas ETH was going sideways and this was trading down here, that would be telling us potentially that everything was going to turn down. But the major step one is Bitcoin does need to go up, and it is. So that's really good. So technically, nothing's changed. We're still bullish. We have been for a long time, sort of scratching our heads as to why everyone's all this bearish sentiment seems to be going around, but we've broken a very nice technical resistance point. I prefer the market to move a little slower than this, even though it's gone in the right direction, just because you don't want people panicking in. And what would normally happen, I think, is you get a consolidation, a bit of sideways price action for the market to catch its breath, and then we should see some form of break higher as the trend continues. But I think before that, the next step should be potentially a move into, as I say, the altcoins, or some of the other majors may get a bit of love on the basis of what's going to move next and what could be the plans for these other major coins, and then people just jump all over those as well.
Yeah, we see a lot of Bitcoin running first, and then it bleeds into the other alts and other things. And I think we're entering new territory, which is exciting, which is an easier path for corporations, sovereign wealth funds, and institutions to get into Bitcoin. And that path has never been easy. They've been able to buy it in the past, but it's very difficult for them, with whoever's running the finances taking a really risky bet that if they buy, like they were required to account for it as you would like a Picasso painting, which if the Picasso goes up in value, you can't reflect it on the books. But if it goes down in value, you have to mark it down. And so it makes you look terrible as the CFO. If it goes down in price and then goes up, you don't get it reflected. And then you have to make all these explanations as to, well, we're really up, but it looks like we're down because the way we have to account for it. So those accounting hurdles been removed. Now the hurdles are being removed so that easily they can move into it without 15 different board meetings to get approvals to decide where to custody it and how to custody it. They can just participate through BlackRock's ETF or any number of probably the 5 or 6 that get approved. And then I'm curious to see if it's followed by Ethereum spot ETFs. And then if later that isn't followed by things like a Cardano ETF or a Solana ETF and other things, which make it even easier for these sovereign wealth funds and institutions to get into some of the blue chip alts. Curious to see how that all rolls out. But usually what kicks off every bull run is more awareness into Bitcoin and the price rising into Bitcoin and bringing people to a place where they start opening their minds as to what is this technology about. They then start researching it. And then they usually go into Bitcoin first, but then that flows into all these other alts as their awareness of the space increases.
Yeah, I think adoption and use case will be the next phase. So when people actually see what they can do with it, and it goes from, I mean, not obviously not Bitcoin, but perhaps more adoption for Bitcoin. But I think with some of the other projects, it might be they're seeing the actual use case behind what they're designed for, and then if we see more of that, I think it will be that it'll be a very interesting time, because not only will you have the money floating around the markets, you'll also have the use case as well, which that will get people really excited.
Yeah, Web Zombie says essentially dollar is less than gold, which is less than real estate, which is less than crypto. I agree with that layout there, right? I was in real estate because it's a fantastic way to build wealth, though slow. And it takes decades and decades to build real wealth, unless you're just really get lucky. So crypto is much, much faster if you're doing the right things. And if you aren't doing the right things, it's a fast way to lose your money.
Well, I guess also it's like anything. It depends which crypto, which real estate. I mean, gold.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The dollar definitely should go down. So that's a given here. And then, obviously it could be wrong, but that's part of the main strategy. And it's only because rates should come down, but we've discussed that. But yeah, crypto, if you buy the wrong coin and don't do your research properly, everything else might go. But then you could buy the right real estate, and then end up in an area that starts to boom. So I know what you're saying, but it kind of does depend a little bit. But that's not.
Yeah, and I would say within real estate and crypto, especially gold, it's somewhat of a commodity. Though if you buy like special minted gold coins that are much higher than what the price of the gold is, then you're not likely to do well. But gold is somewhat a commodity as long as you're buying like pure gold. The price is the same, so it's less important which ones you're buying. In real estate, what you're buying in what market and the timing is critical to your performance. In crypto, it's even more critical to your performance. Timing, not just buying good projects that have possible long-term success potential, but the timing of that, right? So some people say like XRP has a strong chance of lasting success, and I would agree with them. But if you were buying it in December or January, December 2017 or January 2018, well, your timing was absolutely wrong, and you would get punished for a number of years before it ever get back to that price. In fact, it still hasn't got back to that price. All right, let's jump into some of these altcoins. We had some suggestions from last week's video of XRP, WAN-Chain, HUSL, and AKASH. We did look at HUSL and AKASH recently too. Let's look at what's going on with our friend XRP. And I say our friend XRP, I would love to see them get some massive adoption. I don't hold any XRP, but I think the whole of the crypto space owes XRP some homage because they took the very expensive fight to challenge the SEC which was extremely expensive, which laid the groundwork for the court to be able to say that the SEC was acting capricious, as well as when you buy XRP on an exchange, that is not a security contract. And so those rulings paved the way for not only greater regulatory clarity, but to fight this every altcoin is a security idea that Gary Gensler, for some reason, has been pushing within the SEC, which would greatly hurt the crypto market.
So from a technical point of view, we are still in this range, which is, it's been there for a while. We got this major breakout here and then moved back down again, only to get back to square one, really. So as far as I can see, yes, we are bullish. It is gradually going up. And I would say that it would be one that would be on the interest list potentially, but I don't know why, but I think I'd look for other things. I mean, Solana last week, I think I'd be more interested in Solana than this. But if I'm looking at this and I had to trade it, it would be long, but not by much, simply because of the way the market is traded here. It's winding up in this very gentle upward trend. It's already got a lot of supply up here where people had bought it, and then it shot back down again. So I think as it goes back up again, they're probably going to try and get out of those positions. So again, a bit of work to do before we can get into new highs. But with the wind behind everything else, I don't see why this shouldn't be in a good position to capitalize from a broader bull market. It just might take a little bit longer for that to happen. So it's a buy for me, but it's a marginal buy compared to other coins that I might want to look at ahead of it.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, their market cap is outside of what I'm looking at now. There are some cases to be made that XRP could hit market caps that are presently unfathomable, and it could happen. There is that potential, but generally I'm invested in things with a market cap a lot lower than right now. Their market cap is almost 30 billion. And so could it 10x from here? It could. That would put it actually at the market cap where it was before, when it previously hit over $3 all the way back in January 2018. More token supply is in circulation. That's why, even though it'd be going back to that market cap, anyway, it'd be I guess that'd still be a 10x. So that would take it to $5.50. Let's see what else. Like, the case being made for it is if it gets global adoption and it's used to help transmit funds, which the existing systems for transmitting funds, if you're trying to send money from Canada to Europe or the US to Europe or Europe to the US, it might take 2 weeks. They're pretty high fees. You might pay thousands of dollars in fees. It takes a couple of weeks, where if they use XRP to do it, can happen in seconds with very low fees. And replacing what is the SWIFT system, which has been around since the 1970s, or just upgrading the SWIFT system. If that comes together, I could see the market cap on this going a whole lot better. And it seems like it is coming together. So but I'm not in market caps that are this high. Not that this is I don't disagree with the position, and I like where it is on the charts. For me, based where it is on the charts, it's an absolute buy. And I'm just not holding anything with market caps this high. The following cycle, I'll probably be in a lot of blue chips and a lot less of the riskier stuff. But for now, I still have a lot of my stuff in much, much riskier projects than XRP. All right, good suggestion. Let's take a look at WAN chain.
So WAN chain, similar situation with regard to this consolidation. I think we've been bullish on it before. We had a great breakout here. It looked like it was basing. It failed around this supply, around this resistance here. You see where came back as support. It's played around this 0.32 area, which is why I've got that line in there many times. So it really needs to break it. And it didn't break it that last time, and we're still in this downward trend. So if we look at the highs, they're all getting lower. We have got solid support, so buying against some support around the 16 cents area has held quite nicely, and we have got a gradual upward trend. So this one is, again, another one that I think longer term it looks okay. It just hasn't done quite enough to go from a wait to a buy. Through 0.24, 24 cents, I'd feel a bit better about it having some clear space to take a run up at the big breakout point, which is 32 cents. It's not that I just don't like it. I just think it needs to do a bit more. The fact that these lows are rising and there's plenty of price action to analyze, I think is a good thing. So for me, it's still a wait. There are signs of life today, and it should again benefit from the rotation. So we'll just have to wait and see. But at the very least, I want to see these highs breaking, this pattern of lower highs breaking. And as I say, it's not like it's in a downward trend. Thank you for that my mic's peaking. I don't think it is from this end because I've got a limiter on it, so hopefully it's something at your end that you can turn down, but I'll turn it down a little bit. Maybe that will help. So yeah, we got this downward trend is in a range, if you see what I mean. So it's a short-term consolidation rather than it being into new lows. If it was into new lows, that would be a problem, but because it's here, it looks more like this is all part of a basing pattern that just needs a bit more time to develop. And once it does, we'll have a really nice base.
Awesome. Yeah, I like where it's at. For you, it's a wait then.
Yeah.
And for me, this is juicy. So it is in a market cap range that I like. So it's under 40 million. Now, this is the history of on-chain, right? And it doesn't show its earlier history where it was as high as about $10. Okay, it does. Right here. Show that in 2018, it went to about $10. It came all the way down. And this was where I really started loading up on it back in the last bear market. Now, unfortunately, their growth in the following bull market, they really didn't get tied to DeFi. They were still developing their bridges and making some adjustments. This whole idea of cross-chain communication was still being figured out as all these other layer ones started to come out. And I feel like they've hit their stride. I mean, check out the news on the right side of this page on CoinMarketCap. People are taking full advantage of ETH Xflow's expansion to Avalanche. And you're right, this Xflow's expansion means that their bridge easily can bridge funds between Avalanche to all these other networks. New on-chain bridge integration to VNU chain. I don't know VNU chain. Now that Cardano is connected to on-chain's cross-chain infrastructure, Cardano is connected to nearly 30 public networks, both EVM and non-EVM. They really are creating the best bridge for bridging funds between all these different networks. In my opinion, the best bridge, and realize they are a strategic partner of the channel. So maybe I'm biased there. I try to remove any bias that I have. But yeah, like I'm really impressed with their bridge. And so DeFi hasn't had a big run since 2021. I think they're tied into DeFi much, much better this time, that they have some fantastic upside potential. So they're trading all the way not too high above 2020 prices. They came all the way down near there. So yes, they're not quite as cheap. They hit about 9 and 10 cents last bear market. So they're trading about 2x of that now. I think it's a value price on a project that I think has a really, really strong narrative and a really strong use case that is going to put them around for the next 2 decades as the bridge everyone trusts. And they did set up their decentralized bridge in a way where it's more secure, has extra security features that most bridges don't happen. And that's why I think a bunch of money is flowing over to their bridge from the other bridges people were using. And if it continues that trend, then everybody will use them. And then it has a chance of getting in the focus, everyone's focus for a while and really having some big momentum and runs. So I'm really happy about their tech behind it, because that's what I look for is good leadership, which they have phenomenal leadership. They have phenomenal, their programming and engineering team is top notch, some of the best in the whole space. And so their fundamentals are super strong. And that price hasn't been realized according to how strong their fundamentals are. And that's what I look for and invest in, is those types of situations. Web Zombies says rocket emojis and fire emojis. Yeah. Chris Ashby says, yeah, the WAN bridges are great, and WANland is great too. Best bridges by far will connect all the top chains. Yeah, they are nailing that and doing a fantastic job. All right, let's jump over to our next one, which is HUSL, which we did look at the other week.
Yeah. Okay. Could I just check? Is my audio still okay? Is it okay now? Is it not peaking anymore?
That I don't have like people.
Does it sound okay to you?
It sounds okay to me. And there are usually some balancing mechanisms in StreamYard so that it's supposed to automatically balance your mic level versus mine.
Yeah.
But I do know that like I don't hear things that some other people hear.
Okay.
So if someone else is saying that and I can't hear it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means I don't hear it.
Sure. Okay.
Justin says it sounds better. Chris Ashby says audio is good to me.
So. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. I'm way off peaking on my system here. So okay, so the HUSL. Yeah, let's have a look at that. So downward trend. I think we've got to wait, really. It's this isn't something I would jump into because there's not enough evidence. There may be some fundamental stuff that perhaps we'll get to in a moment. I don't remember talking about this, but we've looked at so many, I can't remember all of them. I do have some recollection of the way this chart looks rather than the name, because it's quite a memorable coin. But having gone through the prior low, and if you look at the way it's done that as well, it's not just sort of tapped it and then gently traded. It's really sort of fell out of the bed, as it were. And there's a bit of a rally here, but that's not enough for me to get confident that this is based. I need some form of technical indication that the market is changing its sentiment. And that could mean that I need to wait for much more time until perhaps the base is so clear that you'd think, well, why would I wait so long? But the reason for that is to prevent being in something that just keeps going down. So there is some signs of life. I think at a minimum, we'd need this 1.8 cents horizontal line, the prior low that it broke recently. We need that to go through. In other words, it's got to spend a bit of time back over the waterline. And that would be a minimum. And then we could start to think about buying it. But if we put in a trend line, then it's coming in relatively close to where we are now. First step would be to break that and break this resistance point. Then it would be a speculative buy, because buying anything off this low, it's just not clear enough from a technical point of view. More than happy to come back and have a look at it. If there's some sign of life, if it does trade back up through it, there may be some other technical pattern we can look at that suggests that it's base, inverse head and shoulders, double bottom, something like that. Where all the action is around this 4 cents area. So you can see plenty of resistance here. I would prefer to wait until that level goes. And you might again say, well, yeah, but you could buy it here. But I don't know it's going to get there, really. So if it does, that would be a really good technical sign. And then we could have some indication that the trend has definitely changed, or as definitely as we can say within the world of technical analysis and probability. And therefore we could have a trend up to sort of half a dollar, that sort of thing. So there are a few steps there. But for me, it has to be a wait at this point.
Yeah, for me, I remember talking to the team, and I liked the team, and the team had very good connections into the R&B or the hip hop community, as well as a few other artists. And so their proposition was interesting. I think NFTs are the right way to go for music. So years ago, you used to buy records, and then it was you would buy cassette tapes, and then you would buy CDs of music. And the artist made such a small fraction of that. It makes sense in the future that artists connect up either with an NFT maker or their ability to make the NFTs themselves for the music. So that way, a couple things can happen. They make a much higher proportion out of every song sold, and you own it. When you buy it, you own the NFT to it. You can listen to it wherever. And also, it might have some value. It might be one of the first 1,000 minted or something. And so you can see when it was created, what mint number it was, so that down the road, if that song becomes really important, like you can capture some of the value on that by trading it. Secondly, some of the artists can set up a secondary transfer fee, say that if you sell it, they get another 5% of the royalties. And the artists really like that idea, because if they sold you a record, first of all, you might have paid $15 for the record. The artists themselves made 50 cents. But then later, if you resold that record, whether you resold it for $1 or later you resold it for $3,000, the artist got nothing of that. So the artists very much like NFTs, and we like NFTs for the music. And so that narrative I like. One of the things that concerned me was they had a lot of tokens going to these artists who didn't really know crypto. And it seemed pretty clear to me that the artists would probably just dump their tokens as they were unlocked. And that's one of the things that worried me. Secondly, this is a space that a lot of companies are going to try to push into. So they had some good connections. Were they strong enough to become a market leader? I don't know. We're seeing that their price has been completely punished. So let's look at it. Their market cap is $109,000. Now their fully diluted market cap is $1 million. So it has been punished. And so this is, for me, a coffee money buy. And what that is like, $10 or $20 or $30, because like you could lose that money. If you buy Starbucks coffee, you're paying $10 for it, and you're kind of losing that money anyway for a cup of coffee. And so I feel like this is a great zone for coffee money buys, in my opinion, right? So would I put big money into this? No, I would need to see more from the team before I started putting like thousands of dollars into this. I would just need a little bit better feel to feel like my chances of it doing well in the coming bull run were like 70 to 80% chance versus failing. And I don't know enough on what's happening with them. How is their money flow working out? How are their connection with artists? Does it look like all full steam ahead? If so, I'd feel pretty comfortable loading up at these prices. But for now, I don't know that. It's just, for me, a coffee money buy. Good suggestion. Let's jump over to AKASH, and then we'll take some live suggestions in the order that they've come in.
Just one point on the HUSL. When it comes to big artists, it's usually the record label that manages everything about them, unless they're so big that they've written it into their contracts. So it may be that they're not even allowed to do that, because the record label might even own their own image and the rights to exploit that. So I think you've got to be careful. If you're trying to go direct to the artist, if they're a small artist and they become big, then that's one thing. But if they're a relatively big artist, potentially that will already, or anything that can be exploited, the record label will be thinking about that. So what a good business model might be is going direct to the record labels and saying, look, we can do this for your artist, and share the money with them. And that way they usually have the kind of interest to look into opportunities and the business development side that would make it something that they more likely consider, rather than, like you say, an individual artist who might be brilliant, but it might not necessarily be their thing to be dealing with the technology. But very interesting area. And it's fascinating just to talk about it, really, just to think about what they might be doing. But whoever gets it right, there could be a lot of money. But you can also put songs on the blockchain as well, can't you? So it's all just data. So I wonder whether we're going to see something like that in a similar way, where you can buy like the equivalent of a first edition, because you can't do that in an MP3 world at the moment. But maybe that's something that's coming.
That's exactly, yeah, where it's going to go and why it's coming. And you're right, that explains why the artists have been somewhat limited on who can come in, because when you see these companies, both like Animal Concerts and you see the HUSL, they're limited on the number of artists that they have these kind of partnerships. So these artists must have been outside of contract. So a lot of the artists, when we were talking, a lot of these artists had been around for 20 or 30 years. So my guess is they were out of contract with their record labels and got big enough that they were able to renegotiate things or something, that they had some control over their own things. Right. But it wasn't a huge number of artists, and probably because the majority of artists are probably under some kind of record label contract that would absolutely prohibit them from doing anything on their own. I think this is the way of the future, and it's going to put more pressure on record labels to be more competitive with what they offer people, because a lot of artists will be able to end run around them. You won't need a record label to make yourself famous anymore. You'll be able to do it through YouTube or through other things, and you won't necessarily need the record labels like you did before.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I used to think exactly that. I must admit, exactly that you could do it all yourself. But look around at any major artist. You look at how much marketing there is on, the subways, bus stops, on the internet, everywhere else. It's a huge undertaking in order to promote anything. And that requires much more than trying to force it through, say, something like YouTube. Even on YouTube, you have to spend money in order to get your artist above everybody else, above the noise. So I think it's a very difficult thing to do unless you're an expert marketer and you really know what you're doing. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a chance that something can go effectively viral, like a tweet can go viral or somebody's YouTube video can go viral. But to do it successfully, consistently, I think you need a really sharp marketing team.
True. Great point. Marketing does make a difference in effective marketing. Today, you can go viral from just a viral video on TikTok. So if, like, there was a recent song about rich men in Richmond, and he did like no marketing with that, and it went completely viral. And then all the record labels were approaching him and saying, oh yeah, we'll give you 2 million, we'll give you 10 million, or whatever the numbers were. And he didn't sign with them because essentially the contracts were too confining. They would have been able to tell him essentially what to eat for breakfast and what to do everything. But the ability is there, right? And Justin Bieber made himself famous before the record labels even would take him on. And once they did, it greatly augmented it. And he did that through YouTube back in the early days of YouTube. All right, let's see.
So next one is AKASH, is it?
Yep.
AKASH Network.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, so this I like. Nice symmetrical triangle here, upward trend. You see higher lows. This is obviously not guaranteed, but as far as the trend goes and the way it looks technically, that looks good to me. I seem to remember we talked about it at some point, but either way, I like the look of it, and it's quite simply a buy. If it gets below this 73 cents area, that's my danger zone. That would be where I'd be thinking about either lightening up or bailing out altogether, hitting that parachute, just looking at zones of support. So a double bottom or base, this was the base here, and the base came in around 61 cents. So a push into here is fine, as long as it doesn't go much lower than that. But yeah, it seems on a nice upward cycle, and potential stopping points, $1.98. That could be big resistance. Again, I mean, if we take a step back and look at the big picture, and this applies to a lot of coins. Excuse me, sorry. There's not a whole lot of data. There's more data here than there are on some of the other coins, which is great, but there's still very, very early days as well. So the caveat is, we've seen a bull market, a bear market, and it now looks like it's moving into a bull market, which is great. But it's still, very young compared to, some of the other markets. So that would make me slightly cautious just broadly. But as far as the chart goes, which is what we're looking at here, it's looking good. So yeah, it's a buy.
Fantastic. Let's look at a different view on AKASH. So AKASH is a network on top of Cosmos. And if you think about it, so is one that has been doing tremendously well lately. What is it? Injective Protocol. And so Injective Protocol has done tremendously. They're both on top of the Cosmos ecosystem. And a lot of people are FOMOing into Injective. Look at this. They're like, oh, yes, we covered Injective when it was way back here and when it was way back here. And so now I'm like, yeah, I'm concerned. Now will Injective probably go higher than this? I actually think it will. That's just not my buy-in point. My buy-in point is when the fundamentals say this is good long-term value and the price is really cheap, which was last year. Now it's like high. Now there will come a point in this bull market that these are our only options, these types of charts, because all this is long gone. And we're seeing some of that with AKASH, right? AKASH is following a trajectory somewhat like Injective went through. And so I would rate it as a buy. It's not as juicy as it was back here. And I didn't cover it back here because I wasn't aware of it. But the market cap is just over 200 million. It can get a lot higher. In fact, let's look at where Injective's market cap is. Its market cap is about 4.5x over AKASH's. And so they broke up to the upside, did some retracement, and now they're breaking up again. And it seems like we're seeing somewhat of a similar pattern with AKASH. And so that's why I would rate it as a buy. It's not as juicy as it was back at 26 cents. It's now, in fact, gone about 4x from its lows. In fact, almost 5x from its lows of last year. But sometimes that's the only options that are going to be left, is ones that are no longer near their lows. And then I'll be taking buys where just the charts look good enough. And so chart looks bullish on this. So good suggestion. I think we looked at this last week as well. This was the one we were going through. And I kind of laughed. You will own your cloud and you will be happy, which is play off of what Klaus Schwab's like. You will own nothing and you will be happy. Yeah, funny, right? So good job. All right, let's jump into some other suggestions. Now that we've gone through those, let's see. Going back to earlier, we had Bluntly asked us to look into ontology, and ontology I don't hear very much about. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's a really good thing. Sometimes. Now, ontology was fighting, and Neo were Asian projects that were fighting with this new idea of how to do a layer one. And their idea was you had some kind of token like Neo, and then by holding Neo, you would get gas every day or whatever. And then the gas was used to fuel the transactions on it. And it seemed like Neo had a lot of traction for a long, long time, and that this was the methodology that would work. And so ontology was kind of like a kid brother to Neo. And so here we go. We're looking at the charts here. What are you seeing?
Again, this is one that's got great support, but the rallies are getting smaller, which is a warning sign that potentially it's going to go lower. Now, it could break that pattern, which would be the first indication that the market is basing. And this could be a double bottom. It could be a base, but look at the gap in this area here. It needs to trade into that to rebalance the other side of it. Or if we take this point here and look at it as symmetrical, so this is one part, this would be the next part, we need some evidence of it moving towards, say, 23, 24 cents, big resistance at 24 cents. So let's say if it breaks that, that's our indication to buy. So from this April sort of 5th of this year, it's just been going down, and it's not been able to break any prior high. It's getting very close here, which is why I think it's interesting. And it's also made a small higher low, but those are very small indicators, and it's not enough to get a long position or for me to want to buy it, because it's still extremely tentative. I mean, it wouldn't take much for it to go back down again, and then there's no margin for it to stop it going into a new low. So the way I see it is it's at a fairly crucial point here, and if this is going to be bullish, I don't mind missing a few cents to get into a bit of a safer zone to buy, rather than try and capturing a low that hasn't quite formed yet. And that's what makes it a bit more 50-50 in terms of speculation. So I'd rather the odds were slightly better and there was some evidence that it had already made its base and it was on its way to completing an impulsive trend. But as I say, the levels I would look out for around 24, that sort of thing. 24 cents would be a good sign, but it would have broken that pattern of downward highs just by going through this sort of 19 cents level. So it's not like you have to wait and then buy it there. There will be some evidence that it's moving towards it, and that could encourage me to buy it ahead of the move, just because it's starting to look like the train is leaving the station and we want to get aboard. But right here, right now, I'd have to say the evidence isn't quite there yet, so I'd have to say wait.
Yeah, good suggestion. My concern is that I don't know whether this model is going to be around long term. In fact, I would guess that it isn't. But will it do well from now into the next bull market? Probably. Probably as Asia comes online, though I wish I spoke Mandarin and Korean and Vietnamese and Japanese. If I did, I would have much greater insights into the way people in Asia think about crypto and what's going through their minds. And I feel like I don't have very much connection to that. So it's a risk for me. Now, I like where it is on the charts. It's really kind of slowed down its downside momentum. In fact, it put in a higher low here. And it looks like maybe it's ready to turn around and go the other way. So the chart says a buy. The fundamentals behind it is just when I pick one option, that means I'm then excluding other options. And so there are other ones that I like OMI is the market cap's not too different than this. And I just feel like fundamentally I have a better grasp of how it can do. And so I don't have that I'm aware of. I might have a Neo wallet somewhere that has ontology in it, but I don't have large amounts of it. And and I'm definitely not adding to that position, though looking at the chart, I would say it's a buy for me based on where the chart is at and what's happening. But realistically, the more the money I get, I'm putting into other things like OMI, and it's got a similar market cap to this. All right, so the next one is MELD.
So MELD has been underwater from its breaking to all-time lows here around, well, I'm assuming on the basis of this recent chart, we've got 1.3 cents is the key level. You see how it hit this, rallied, came back, and then broke through it. So that's the kind of low watermark, high watermark, whatever you want to call it. It's got to get over there before I can say anything about buying it. Now, it's looked cheap, like very cheap, and it has had a rally in this last few sessions, which is nice. It's good that it's done that, but that for me isn't really enough to indicate that the trend has definitely changed. And until it can get over this resistance point, for me, it's got to be a wait. But, I'm encouraged by this recent price action. At least it's responding to a broader market looking okay. And when I'd like to return to this, see where everything else is, see whether it's, it's correlated with a broader, bull market and other things, or whether this is just its own random rebound and it's going to continue down again. But at this point, there's no technical pattern. It would take a move all the way up to here, really, around 2.5 cents or 2.7 cents. Resistance, resistance, resistance. Had a go here. That failed as well. So for me, that is where it becomes really interesting, unless we see some other form of reversal pattern before then.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on MEL. Now, the chart looks concerning on the price. So if I didn't know the fundamentals on this, and we did recently do an AMA with Ken, it was about a month and a half ago, both on the channel publicly, but then a private AMA with him for those that were members in the Discord, where just everyone in the Discord was able to ask questions and get a feel for it. And I'm still very excited about where the future of this is going to be. So the DeFi narrative is being punished. Maybe there's some tokens vesting. They did also go from Cardano community bridging over to Avalanche. And some of the Cardano community feels like betrayed, like, oh my gosh, you're leaving us. Truthfully, they're still kind of on both, but they were broadening their network to be able to lend not just on Cardano, but on EVM compatible chains. And so the business side of that decision made sense to me. Their market cap is at 24 million, which is extremely interesting to me. They have about half of their tokens in circulation. Okay. So over time, a bunch of their tokens have gone into circulation, and that combined with the bear market has really pushed their price down. I would say it's a buy, and it's a risky buy. That chart doesn't show that it's bottomed. It might go down more on this. And so, like, that's a risk from the standpoint of, do I think this project is likely to fail? I haven't seen anything suggesting it's going to. But in a bear market, projects don't usually tell you if they're running out of money, because then it will surely fail. So I don't think they'd be running out of money. They raised a whole bunch. Ken Blau, who runs it, has a lot of entrepreneurship experience, which includes controlling money and planning correctly. So my guess is they'll probably survive into the next bull run, and they're well positioned to do well in it. So as people, one of the other suggestions to look at was AADA, which has had, a magnificent move a number of months ago, like 3 months ago. MELD is yet to have that kind of pump and those inflows, but I don't see why it won't in the future. So this would just be like a small add to the position, hoping actually that it does even worse. And I could make bigger adds as I feel like maybe it has bottomed. Great suggestion. Let's take a look at Dynex.
Okay, Dynex. This one is a nice looking chart. The only thing I can fault this on would be that there's not a lot of data. So with that caveat, you'd have to be a bit more cautious because of the lack of history, and it might just be this particular chart. Maybe it's been trading for longer than this is showing, but the trend is up. It's attempting to break its all-time high on this particular chart, so it's having a consolidation. It hasn't done some form of crazy move to the upside that suggests excessive short-term speculation. Obviously none of this guarantees that it's going to go up. It could just keep go sideways and then come down again, but the probability given the trend is looking good. So for me, it's a buy whilst it's above this trend line. If it breaks the trend line, where I would expect support to come in is around 75 cents. Anything that's a close below that on a couple of days, I'd be exiting. But nice looking charts, interesting. So I can see why you wanted to look at it.
Yeah, that is interesting what's happening on the charts. Let me share. Basically, this is their website. So nice looking website. World first neuromorphic supercomputing blockchain based on the Dynex chip algorithm, a proof of useful work approach to solving real world problems. Interesting. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I don't either. There's a lot of buzzwords in there, right? Like, what does that really add up to? Well, I wish I had a better idea what their transactions per second is and what their like finality rate is. How fast like is everything approved in like 0.1 seconds, or what kind of finality rate does it have? And I'm not seeing those numbers here. The chart is interesting. So since they started being tracked on CoinMarketCap, we're seeing that they came out, they went down, and then they've been really, really pumping. And I don't know what's driving this. I don't know enough about their fundamentals to know what is going on here. So for me on the chart is not my best option. Does the chart suggest? I mean, it could be a couple things. That could be a double top, and it retraces from here, especially if the bear market continues for longer. If everything turns bullish because Bitcoin continues to take off in the coming 2 or 3 months, then probably this will respect this trend line and it will break further to the upside. So for me, it's risky to be buying here, right? So here it was 8 cents. It's over 10x over that. It's just, to me, I just don't know enough about it. Doesn't mean it's not good. The market cap for what they're saying for essentially a layer 1 blockchain, the market cap isn't very bad. We see that their circulating supply is 74 million. Their max supply is 110 million. So a lot of their tokens, 67% are in circulation. I like that aspect with a really low market cap for what's supposed to be a layer 1 blockchain. So, I mean, it's good. Just my concern is the price already up 10x. I don't know enough fundamentals to know, that's really not an issue at all. It's going to do much, much better. Or they're using a lot of buzzwords. It sounds cool, but it's not going to be competitive versus the other stuff. And I don't know which of those two it is. All right. Fantastic suggestion. Let's look at animal concerts. Then we'll look at LenFi, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay. Animal concerts. One that I have a lot of sympathy for the idea, because I do like the idea. But for me, that's not enough. The chart has to look good as well. And it seems to be turning around. It's come back to its breakdown point. This area here, 301685, was the major breakdown point. So you look at the support here, and then it hit here again, and then broke through it. So major break of support, and it's come back and hit it as resistance, which is great that it's got through it, but because it's such a big area, we have to give it a little bit more space to be sure. So I like the fact that it's done this. I like the fact that it's recovering, but there's still this big weight of this downward trend on it. So I will have to be careful here. Maybe nibble a little bit with highly speculative money, but I'd prefer to see this 200-day moving average for it to be above that. You notice those are all turning down as well. That kind of reflects the trend. But I normally would focus more on the price anyway, rather than the moving averages. But I think the moving average here is quite useful to say where we might start entering sort of a more interesting territory for it. In other words, above there, it's telling us the market has had a really good recovery. And at this point, it's done well, but still not quite enough to safely buy in from a technical point of view, just because of the weight of the downward trend that we've seen before. It's made a little double bottom. Again, that's not big enough for a major trend change. So I'm going to say, speculatively, one could buy it. And I know it sounds a little balanced here, but that's because it is balanced. It is trying to recover. And if we wait a couple of weeks, it may have recovered much more, which would be fantastic. But equally, it could get back below this. And as soon as it does, or if it does, the chart looks completely different and starts to look bearish again. So it doesn't need to do very much to get back into that bearish chart. Excuse me. So that's why I'm slightly cautious. I think we should revisit this again, because I think it's such an interesting project. But if I had to use a tripwire for it, I'd say the 200-day moving average. If it gets over that, then I'd be thinking about buying it, maybe nibbling just a little bit for speculative purposes, but there's not really much to justify getting any more than kind of 55, 45 or 50, 50 on it to the upside at this point from a technical point of view.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a feel for the market cap of this, and neither CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap is giving me a number on it. CoinGecko, it's, just leaving me clueless as to market cap. CoinMarketCap, I thought it used to have it, but it does give us an idea of fully diluted market cap. If all the tokens were in circulation, then it would be about a $2 million fully diluted market cap. So at least that gives us a little bit of information. I think I actually bought the low on this because I did dollar cost average some more money into it while it was down, even though it was a risky position. But I just used coffee money, so I didn't put a significant position into it. I might put $100 or $200, which I know that's more than coffee money for most people. You'd be surprised your second cycle, how you're able to just, use more money. My first cycle for me, coffee money, not my first cycle, because 2017 was technically my first cycle. My first cycle that I was prepared for, which was 2021, and kind of had an idea, and I had stocked up during 2019, 2020, really 2018, 2019, 2020. And so 2021 went extremely well for me. And so, yes, I'm just in a different position than I was 4 years ago, just like I think you're going to be in a magnificently better position 4 years from now if you stick it around in crypto and you continue to learn. So yes, I dollar cost average more in this, and now it's up 2x essentially from where it was. And to me, it's just a wait, because what's usually going to happen here is that it's going to retrace back down from this. And often it will put in, even if it's going to turn around, it'll put in a higher low. But that low might be 35% cheaper than this. It might come back down to here at 0.012 cents or something. And then it might be ready to run. So at this point, it's just, I don't see any point to buy right here unless it breaks the upside, comes back and touches this line. Then I realize, oh, shoot, this might be as cheap as I'm going to get for adding more in. I'd rather see it break to the downside and put in a higher low and be buying at that higher low. Great suggestion by one of our viewers. And we have Lenvi, which is AATA, which blasted off like a rocket ship 3 months ago, like absolutely crazy, and has since come back some.
On the basis of this chart here, it's looking good, unless it's not this one.
That should be it.
Yeah. So
it doesn't show as much history there as I would like. Oh yeah, it does. It goes all the way back to 2022.
So trend is up. We've got this. If look at this technical pattern here. I had to get it on this. It wasn't on CoinMarketCap. That's usually a spike low, which is almost a perfect reversal pattern. We've got 3 bullish candles going to the upside, which indicates that the trend is up. So I would just put a sort of stop loss area around 1.6 and try and ride that trend back up. Again, it's still a speculative market, but things are turning, and I'd expect this to see some rotation, some form of rotation. But yeah, nice smooth trend. Let's hope that gets repeated. The main target here would be around $4. That's where the major resistance comes in. I'm just trying to see if there's any others. On this chart, it's quite difficult to see, really. I mean, there was some resistance around 1.7, but we're through that. Other than that, there's a bit of consolidation around 2.4. So 2.4 as a resistance point. If it can get through that, then it's going to look, increasingly interesting. So trend is up. We're going to go with it. So for me, it's a buy.
We had a suggestion also for Big Time, which is actually a project that's been on my mind. So we will add that. Let me just give a breakdown of what I think looking on LenFi. So this is the beauty of a low market cap project, because from its lows of 21 cents, it went all the way to, gosh, 440. And so a 20x in a bear market, which is amazing. A lot of people missed buying at the bottom on this. I had covered them a lot. In fact, had some interviews with the founders way back around this time period. And interesting project. I don't know what really caused them to take off, other than their functionality really started performing. And so within the Cardano community, a lot of people got excited about them, and it absolutely blasted off. And of course, at these prices, I was seeing people say, oh, it's going to go to $10. It's going to go to $30. And of course, it peaked out and it's come back on a retracement, which is normal, especially in a bear market. In fact, this isn't very normal to happen in a bear market at 20x, but it happens seldomly, but does happen. So it's pulled back and now it's at a price. And look at the market cap is still relatively low at 35 million. Now for me, I just so remember, if I put money into this, that's excluding other options that I could be in, and it's fairly high compared to its history. Now there is a history before this that isn't reflected. If I remember when it launched, the price was like $3 and dropped from there. So it did break to new all-time highs, but CoinMarketCap, it wasn't tracked on CoinMarketCap for quite a while. So we can't see that part of the charts, though it did break to new all-time highs, which is good, but we're not able to see from the previous charts what resistance and support points there were. And I wish we could, because that would give us a better idea of where things are going to struggle. So for me, it's kind of like at this, it's a wait, only because there's money I could put in other things. Now, they're really doing a good job within the Cardano community of leading the way for DeFi with some really novel ideas. So I have to give it to the team members, right? They're fairly young. I'm thinking they were out of Lithuania, and smart. They speak pretty good English. They have a team of developers that they lead. They're also developers themselves, and really, really passionate about Cardano. So with a background in HUSL. Good job to them. They've done pretty incredible things. For me, it's just a wait at this price. I would like to see cheaper price again before I were be foregoing other things. Now, generally, is it looking bullish? It probably is. I wouldn't disagree that it'll probably do decently well from here. All right, let's jump over to Big Time, which Big Time recently came on the markets. There's not a lot of history, and so it's going through a lot of pump. And I played the game because I have some of their space. I finally got access to the game. They reached out to my manager like a year ago and asked if we would cover them. But when he got back to them, I guess they had already gotten the window. But I've always been interested in the team behind this game. And all I wanted in order to cover it was just give me access to the game, because I want to test out the game. You don't even need to pay me. Just give me access to the game, and I want to cover it because I want to see what this game is doing. And the game's pretty impressive. So they've done a good job. They're one of the better games that is out there and released, and you don't really have access to this unless you buy their space. It's called Space, and I can't say I love the name for that, but it's like a medium space that kind of gives you extra rooms in essentially your ship. And the bigger the space and the higher the rarity of it, the more rooms that you have to put a forge in and other things in it. So the term space kind of doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. The gameplay itself is good, and the team behind it has good stuff, but their price is kind of in price discovery, and a lot of their stuff isn't in circulation yet. We don't have a lot of history here, but Paul, what are you seeing in the chart?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not enough really for me to give an opinion, because we've only got a few days. The last few days it's been sideways. It's had a good pump here, as you say, and then it's just gone into a range. So there's not much to read out of this. So I'd have to wait until we see a bit more price action, to be honest. So I'm assuming it just started here, sorry, you have it round the other way, don't you? So the 11th of October. And so what would this be? This is that daily? Yeah. So I don't know. It's not enough really. Sorry, but I can't really call something when there's not enough data there. The levels that I'd be looking at is a break from this range. So we've got 17 cents down to 14 cents, very tight range from the last few days. Resistance points would come in at 20 and then 26 and then the highs. So a crossing point, an important crossing point, I think would be 26. So if it got through 26, then we'd be looking at a test of this area here around 32, 34. And any new all-time high or all-time low from a technical point of view is usually a buy or a sell, but that's normally for something that's a bit more established. So my feeling here is you've either got to go with your gut feeling in terms of the game and or trade it in an amount that's small enough so you can sort of not take any pain. Well, that's what I would do. Just not think about it if it goes to zero. But again, the chart, there's just not enough there for me to give an opinion. Unfortunately, it's just too range bound, and there's not enough data.
Yeah, I'm going to share some fundamental background on this to just kind of help the audience see how I'm viewing it. Okay, so 13 cents right now, it hit 32 cents. So it seemed like, oh, it's a really good buy, but is it? Okay, so their circulating supply is 154 million. The max supply is 5 billion. So its fully diluted market cap right now is $678 million. That's a pretty high market cap for a game that just launched. And it's just kind of this cycle in that it just launched. People are really excited about it. And so they're kind of panic buying in. But I would suggest that as a lot of these tokens come into circulation, it's going to really push the price down from here. Because this market cap, this fully diluted market cap, is far above Illuvium's fully diluted market cap. And I think Illuvium, number one, has a far bigger community. I think both these games could do extremely well. I think Illuvium's a little bit because they have the trifecta of like a mobile game where it's like the land-based game combined with their overworld game combined with their PvP battler. Like, I think that's going to help Illuvium do extra well above normal video games. And the way the assets run on this, I do think Big Time's going to do well. It just likely is going to go through some token investing pain before it then does well. So right now, a lot of people are thinking about it because it just got released and a lot of people are impressed. I was impressed with the gameplay and how good it is. I would be shocked if it did anything other than have the price go down for a while as some more of these tokens come into circulation. Investing pressures push it down and push it down. So I'm looking for a market cap that's much, much cheaper before I'm interested. I'm just too risky right now. My chance of doing well on this, in my opinion, are far too low. The chance of it retracing massively on me before it then does good are just far too high for me to put any money in this yet, even though I'm very interested in this project and I'm very interested in their token. Just waiting for better timing. All right.
Great. Well, I wish it well. I hope it does do well. But yeah, interesting picks this week.
Yeah. Fun where things are going. This is what like bear markets flipping into the bull market feel like. And you kind of that uncertainty. Is it finally going to happen? When is it going to happen? Just part of it. Some people really struggling right now with the patience it takes to do well on this. And it does require patience. If we just think about it intellectually, like 4 years is not very long to wait. So why are people even struggling with patience? Well, don't feel too bad. Patience is what drives out the majority of the 95% that don't do well in crypto. So everyone feels that. I feel the impatience. I just continue to push through it because I know that there is a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. So, Paul, thanks for joining us and for just sharing your thoughts on what you're seeing.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
All right. Some thoughts as we think about the breakdown of this. I'm trying to release more videos on mindset because mindset helps you stay in, and some I'm covering projects, and especially on these, normally on Wednesdays, but on Tuesdays, gives us a chance to look at projects and some of the things I look at to identify things. But secondly is mindset. Like, it's exhausting, and you have to know what it is that you're working for so that you can stick through these very boring times. And that's why I say little things like buy when it's boring, because it does get boring. It gets emotionally draining and you get frustrated. And here's what it feels like in the bear market. Now, if we had a magic crystal ball, we'd be able to buy exactly at the bottom and sell exactly at the top. But none of us do, because there is no such thing. And so you end up buying when it's low. And guess what happens? It gets lower on you. And then what happens? Well, it gets even lower on you. So then you're looking at your portfolio and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm massively down. I've done this all wrong. This is terrible. Everyone, my spouse is saying, just sell and get the money out. And this is why so many people leave the space during the bear market after they've already spent a year to a year and a half to 2 years in the bear market, gone through all the pain, and then they usually sell not long before the bull market. They finally capitulate, and then the bull market's ready to rock and roll. And here's what I would say, like, stick it out. What else are you going to do in the next 4 to 8 years that can financially change your life, that you can do on top of your day job, that you can spend an extra hour or 2 hours a day learning, growing yourself, that can make you millions and millions of dollars? I mean, what are your other prospects? For me, when I found this, I knew this was the way. Oh my gosh, I love it. I can do this on top of my day job, and the money I can make from this is crazy, as crypto allows the internet to do things it couldn't do without it. And this technology is literally going to change the world. Now, we did create a private Discord, and part of the reason that private Discord, and I've been thinking a lot and analyzing a lot, like, what are the success rates of my audience? And I'll share with you, the numbers aren't very good. For those that have seen at least 2 videos, so the average success rate is that less than 5% do well in crypto over long term. For those that have seen over 2 of my videos, the success rate is just slightly higher than that. It's about a 13% success rate. So it's still an 87% dropout rate. Now, those that watch every one of my videos, the success rate goes way, way, way up to like 65 to 70%. And it would be even higher than that if people didn't still wash out. The success rate of those that join the Discord is going to be vastly higher, especially if you stay in the Discord. Why? Because the Discord is really good discussions. Now, you can join the Telegram, and the Telegram helps because you need to have a community of like-minded people to be able to talk things through so that you're making less emotional decisions. And the Telegram is free. The Discord costs $20 a month entry level. And if you want higher access, it costs more than that. But that's part of the commitment you're making to your own future for better conversations with higher level people. And the success rate of those in the Discord goes way, way up massively. Number one, because you're committing to yourself, and the commitment level to yourself is much higher. But secondly, you're around really smart people that get it, that understand what's happening. Some people have been in business for 30, 50 years. They understand market cycles. They aren't going to let the short-term thing wash them out. And surrounding yourself by people like that is huge. So consider that. Not for me, but for you. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. This wrap, well, you know what this is about. Fun way, just reiterate these principles. Thanks.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, say the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.